Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Josh from MitsuTimes. Today my guest is Brad Balcom. He is the owner and driver of one very sweet Time Attack Evo. How are you doing today, Brad?
I'm doing great, Josh. How are you doing?
I am doing awesome, man. I just wish it was a little warmer. I need to get down there where you are.
That's right. Come on down to the beach.
Get closer
Excellent
to the coast.
winters.
Yep. Brad, I get a lot of drag racers on this podcast. I'm trying to make my rounds through the Time Attack Evo guys, and I got to say, a lot of those guys are racing Evo 8s and 9s, and you chose the 10, which I absolutely love because I really feel like we're on the renaissance of 4B11 parts and drivetrain parts, and just seeing some of those action shots of your Evo in action is pretty sweet. I'm real glad that you chose that car.
Awesome, thank you.
So, Brad, let's talk about the setup on your Evo. What makes it go?
Yeah, so after about a year of ownership and one season in Time Attack, the car was running an IHI 18K, bolt-ons, tuning, and some suspension. And fast forward a year after running it that way, and did a full build on it to get real competitive in the enthusiast class of Global Time Attack.
Nice.
Specifically. Yeah, so reached out to sales guy Jason at DSG Performance, and we connected with some of the guys over at Exigent, and we ended up doing a brand new stock block and turned that into their 2-liter built motor package. So we put some GSC Stage 2 cams in it. GSC used to be local here, and they're still in the Charleston area. They used to be right next door to me here in Charleston. So love running those guys' cams. I've used them for a lot of things. They're awesome. Those guys are great. Nice to be able to buy race cams local. That's cool. So some GSC Stage 2 cams. We did MyVec delete on the exhaust side, put a Gen 2 GTX 3576R on it. We're running the stock ECU still on a Tefra V3, and we've got some FIC 1650 cc injectors. And then we did some street tuning with Chag. We actually have not done a dyno tune on it yet, which we will do. But we did some street tuning on it with Chag, and he was really amazing. Actually, kind of cool story there. The build kind of came together last minute, as I always do, right? and I got the car back from being street tuned. I had it over at a shop, and they checked everything out, made sure no leaks, just did a full scope check of the car. I did a street tune on the way home from the shop to my house, and got some base files over to Chag. And then I put the car in the trailer and headed to Coda.
Wow.
So 22-hour drive. So Chag took the base tune that I made on the way home, or the log rather, and I just drove to Texas for Circuit of the Americas opener Super Lap battle last February. And as I drove there, I stopped, unloaded the Evo, did some pulls, made a U-turn on the interstate, did some more pulls, put it back in the trailer, sent it to Chag, and hit the next rest stop.
Wow.
So we did that all the way to Texas. So awesome service from him. He kind of knew that was coming because we knew everything was coming together last minute, and he really jumped in there, man. He was a hero. He had that thing running like crazy when we got to Coda.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. So one of my friends wrote in and said the car feels like it teleports because it's a laggy turbo, but it's the car is purpose built for road racing.
Right.
So he said it's like, it's quick, but you don't feel anything crazy. And then it just, at 4,000 RPM, it teleports 200 feet.
It's like the DeLorean in Back to the Future.
Yeah, that's right. So, so that's kind of the setup on the car and the help we got putting it together. Jason at DSG was awesome. He's extremely knowledgeable on the platform, really passionate. Really passionate about the platform. And he was very excited to see one go road racing. So
you got to be one of the few Evo Time Attack guys still running the 2-liter. I think that's pretty interesting.
I just didn't really have my goals for the car, my power levels for the car, the RPM range in which I use the car.
Yeah.
It fit. It doesn't outclass me, doesn't put me in a different class that I don't want to be in yet. Our goal for the car is to run, a 550-ish horsepower, safely so that it can, survive road racing conditions.
Okay. Well, Brad, what is it that got you into Time Attack racing in the first place?
Well, started doing HPDE events with Chin Motorsports back when I was in school with Florida State, and that was in 1999, so showing my age a little bit there. But spent college at Florida State and started doing some stuff at Sebring in a front-wheel drive Honda Civic Si, and fell in love with driving a car on a road course.
Yeah.
And just went to as many HPD events as I could throughout college, most of which were at Sebring. And then moved from there and back to Charleston. And we have great racetracks very close to us. We have Carolina Motorsports Park, which is in Kershaw. I live an hour and a half from there. We have Roebling Road Raceway down in Savannah, Georgia, and I'm about an hour and 45 minutes from there.
Nice.
And my most favorite track, and the track I try to visit the most, is Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Just absolutely love it. So it wasn't until I kind of got to drive more tracks that I realized how hard Sebring is to drive. And so I have a lot of love for Sebring and all the different pavement conditions that are out there. It's, on an old airport.
Right.
So there's runway, there's tarmac, there's concrete, there's huge expansion joints down the back straight. And it's cool. So I just fell in love with road racing and decided to turn that competitive 2 years ago, and decided on the platform, the Evo 10, snagged one, and took it to Global Time Attack.
Killer. Yeah, when you talk about Sebring, I think of that personally. That would have to be my dream track to ever try to do a lap in, because I feel like I've raced it so many times in video games that it just I want to compare the experiences.
Yeah, it's an amazing course. It's a very challenging course. It's got some very fast sweepers and lots of undulations from changing pavement conditions, and it's pretty cool. You enter two under one pavement condition and start braking under another.
Wow.
So very, very challenging, obviously iconic, top-notch facility. Yeah. Love it.
Good deal. So, Brad, you talked about when you were going competitive, you were looking for the right chassis, and you end up choosing the Evo platform. What was it that made you choose the Evo?
I was cycling through a lot of cars to, in my mind to figure out what platform I wanted to go racing in. I've never owned an all-wheel drive platform before, and I've always had this soft spot for Evos, loved them. And obviously the more popular is the 8 or even the 9. And I wanted to, keep moving with newer technology. So I landed on trying to find myself a 10. And I was at Road Atlanta. I was doing I was actually at a time attack event, and I was in an LS swapped S14 that I have. And I saw this Evo lapping with a for sale sign on it.
Wow.
And so I walked over to the guy and talked to him about it. And it was a nicely sorted Evo 10. He was a car dealer and a performance driver. So he kind of flipped Evos specifically. And, he would get them, make sure they were in tip top shape. Do some bolt-on, basic modifications to it. This particular one had an IHI 18K turbo, very, very popular, excellent turbo for the road course too. And it was just a very well sorted, very nice car. And I took it home.
Heck yeah.
So, yep. So, he was, I was wheeling and dealing with him over the car over the course of all day Saturday. And he had a trailer for sale too. And we were real close in agreement. And I was going to buy it anyways, but I was still trying to save myself a little. And so he had a trailer for sale also. And so I saw him hook up the trailer to someone else's truck. And I walked over and I said, "You just sell the trailer you brought the Evo in?" And he said, "Yeah, it's sold." And I said, "Well, how are you getting home now?" Because he also had his personal vehicle there. And he said, "I guess I'm selling you my Evo." And I said, "Great." So
backed him into a corner.
Yep. So, and I've seen him at events, and we've kept in touch. So he's seen it evolve as well. So
that's great.
Buying a race car at a racetrack is fun. And it was out there lapping, doing real respectable laps out there at Road Atlanta, and I watched it run all weekend long. I knew it was well put together, and had to have it. So
you knew it was plenty capable in someone else's hands, so couldn't wait to get yours on it.
Yeah.
So you talked about the setup that was previously on it when you picked it up. What was the car like when you got it? Still, pretty much like it is now, but with obviously a different engine setup.
That's right. So it was very, very much like it is now. It has an Olin suspension on it that I did a refresh on, and it's very well sorted. It's pretty stock bodied other than that.
Okay.
And it had that IHI on it on a stock block, and I think the car had about 70,000 miles when I bought it. Everything's still running strong. So. Yeah, just some bolt-ons, and the car ran really well right up until I caught it on fire.
Caught it on fire, and then had to kind of start from the ground up again, huh?
Yep, caught it on fire, put it back together in the form that it was. Ended up determining that I completely damaged the turbo. Ended up having to pull it apart and reseal the motor. Did a lot of things, and just kind of went through a couple of unexpected headaches, and then the final one was that I'd gotten a new turbo, same one, had a shop put everything together for me to get ready to go to Circuit of the Americas last year, actually. And basically took it right out of their shop and went and had a massive oil leak at the turbo oil line inlet to the block. The installer had obviously accidentally stripped it, and it didn't really rear its head until I was on track. So after the fire, I put the car back in stock form, and this would be 2 years ago. Went to COTA and went out there and did like 3 laps, put myself in second place, and the car just started puking oil out of the block. And so obviously it didn't move after that. So I watched I instead of racing crafted beer, and I watched I watched my buddies race, which, hey, if you're going to travel all the way to Circuit of the Americas from the East Coast and then get grounded after 3 laps, you're still in a really amazing place.
Yeah, for sure.
With really amazing people. So I watched myself dwindle down to 4th place all weekend, and cheered on my friends. So when I got home, I put together a package to make the car more powerful, more competitive in the enthusiast class, and ultimately more reliable.
Well, Brad, let me ask you this. So what motivated you to rebuild it again instead of just punting it and moving on to a different platform?
I love the dynamics of the car. It really is a driver's car. And I absolutely love the way the car handles. The 4-wheel drive platform really suits my driving style. I just really enjoy it. I've had front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, obviously, and my rear wheel drive cars have ranged in horsepower levels from 200 to 700.
Yeah.
And I love the way that this car performs and handles. It's heavy. I can't really strip it down very much in the class that I'm in. So we all know the car is heavy, but it's really good. And for how heavy it is, it's not terrible on the tires. It's not as bad on tires as what I anticipated.
Yeah.
So I just really enjoy the car. Love the handling dynamics of the car. I love that there's not a lot of them out there. And sometimes that tells you shouldn't be in one, like if there's no one else out there doing that. But I don't think that's the case here. There's a lot of platforms that are very popular in the classes, and I like kind of being the black sheep in a really quick car.
For sure. Yeah, I get that. So coming from, you've done circuit racing, you've done autocross, you've obviously done a lot of street pulls. What kind of modifications and tuning strategies do you have to squeeze out of this car in order to get the most out of it for time attack events? Like, how does it compare to if someone was building an autocross car?
Yeah. The difference for me is really the time attack is one of the most competitive driving environments I've been in. And it's one where, you're battling for tenths, and you come into the paddock and everyone's laptop is plugged into the computer, squeezing a little bit out of it.
Yeah.
I focus a lot on hitting my marks and what I'm doing as a driver. And so, like I started speaking with Chag about when we first started to approach this, I said, I want to tune that we can, set it and forget it. I don't go out there with a kill mode button. I don't have 5 different tunes on it that I select from, except for a valet tune.
Yeah.
And I really, I trust the car setup, and I try to not manipulate it too much. Now I make suspension adjustments, things like that, of course. But with the motor setup, my goal was to just build a reliable car that was going to be powerful enough, doesn't have to be max power. And so it's overbuilt for the power it's putting out, which increases its reliability.
Heck yeah. And
so I'm a set it and forget it guy when it comes to the tuning aspect. I race a lot of long weekends too, and don't want a tuner being on standby for me
right
all of the time. They've done it for me before, but I try not to ask that of people. So, yeah, we get out there and we play with different sway bar configurations and suspension adjustments, and we do a little bit of chassis tuning. But really, with the motor setup and the tuning that I have, I leave it right where it's at.
I like that. It's we hear a lot on this podcast of, well, I went from Coda, and then I went to Laguna Seca. We had to completely retune the car. Like, man, that must be strange to go to all these different. I mean, it's not like grid life's in one place every time, so you're constantly changing. It's nice that you can have one tune and just change the mechanical parts.
Right. For me, one of the reasons I do that is it kind of retains my confidence, and it also takes a variable out of the equation. If we pull in and we're looking for a couple of tenths and we start changing something, maybe it doesn't feel as good. Maybe it feels a little bit different in trying to exit some corners. And now as a driver, I'm adjusting to what's changing. And sure, you can definitely achieve tenths that way. People do it all the time. But at the level that I'm at, me personally, I know I can go be confident and hammer that thing every time, and I know what it's going to do every single corner, out of every single corner, and down every straight.
That makes a lot of sense. So, Brad, do you think after all those rebuilds, looking back on it now, you would still do everything the same again?
My need for speed says yes, but a little bit of my fun factor says no. When the car, as it was much more stock when I bought it, I could really lap that thing hard for a full day. I do a lot of instructing when I go to HPDEs, so that means I'm riding shotgun and I'm instructing for a session, but then I join multiple other sessions, jump into a solo group or a red group or put other people in the car. We've had it completely full around Road Atlanta. It's sort of frowned upon for having backseat passengers, but we've done it. We've made it a taxi a couple of times. It's a ton of fun to put 3 of your friends in a car and go rip it.
Yeah.
And so now it's built a little differently. For Time Attack, you get out there, you put some heat in the tires, and you've got about 2 laps in the car before the car is a little bit hot or the tires are starting to get greasy. The strategy behind Time Attack is to, really go out there and be a 1-lap wonder, go put down a real flyer. And, if you don't do that and, 2 laps after your warm-up lap, you might not do it. So, the car is just built and set up differently. And so, it's, not something I want to go join an endurance race with. So I would say that, less modified was a really good time in that car because of, its extended use.
Yeah.
And more modified. It's very purpose built now. That's not to say it's not fun. It's stupid fast.
That's one thing that really draws me to watching, Time Attack events is because, every time you go out there, it has to be a Hail Mary. There's no taking a knee and just hoping you win. That you have to go out there and hit every corner and know the track. And that part I really love about Time Attack.
Yeah. And, especially when you arrive at a track that maybe you only practice on the sim, which is a fantastic tool that I use. But I've certainly showed up to racetracks before and learned the line when I got there. And so in Time Attack throughout the weekend, usually these are 2-3 day events. It's so cool to see all your competitors and all your friends just get faster and faster.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, I went to Coda and P2 in the first session and then watched myself dwindle down to 4th. Guys get faster out there. It's super cool to watch everybody push each other and, still, one of my competitors once pulled like he was in 4th and he was running a couple of seconds behind me, so it was unlikely that anything was going to happen, and I was kind of fighting for my podium spot, and he took a V-band clamp off of his car and put it on mine and skipped the session.
Wow.
So Yeah, so everybody helps each other. It's such a cool sport. Absolutely love the grassroots sport. And it's funny, I had a conversation the other day with, is it grassroots or because the cost of entry is not very grassroots, but yeah, it's just super fun, and people get really fast out there over the weekend. So it's cool to watch just these unbelievable lap times get clipped off.
This episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by DI Fabrication. They offer several Evo 8 and 9 parts, with Evo 10 parts coming soon. If you don't see it on their website, drop them a PM on Instagram or Facebook. Together, we are DI Fabrication. Check out all their products at difabrication.com.
So you've obviously done a lot of laps in a lot of different cars, Brad. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the Evo when it comes to this type of racing?
I think the strengths is the chassis dynamics. The car is so stable and predictable, and I can be admittedly a little too early on throttle coming out of some turns, something that I'm working on, and that's super fun in this car. It might be why it's so hard to work on. And the car is just fantastic in many ways.
Good deal.
The only weakness that I would really say is that there's two that really I've really struggled with, and it's the reason the car is not ready for next season coming up too. I'm having a shop custom build some parts. The manifold, the turbo to manifold bolt for the T4 flange it rips itself apart. It ejects bolts. Like my competitors probably think I'm Mario Kart because I know I've ejected manifold bolts coming through the corners,
throwing turtle shells at them.
And that's just been a really strenuous weak point for the car, especially as it got more modified. Wow. Just that bolted connection between the turbo and the manifold on the exhaust side. It's apparently super common, and there's one of those bolts in the lower left corners that just ejects itself. The really tricky part about that is that you can barely get your hands down in there. It's so cramped. I've had several different manifolds on the car. I had one manifold that straight up just couldn't even, there's absolutely no physical way to access one of the bolts, because I've tried so many to try to kind of alleviate and find the best one. Yeah. So that's a big sticking point for me, and that problem is actually kind of what partially led to the fire that happened.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah, a bolt came out of the manifold, and another one sheared, and the turbo kind of turned, and it did lots of fun things with the heat to the oil line, and the oil line saturated a turbo blanket, and it all happened super, super fast on the long back straight at Road Atlanta. And by the time I came through 10A and 10B, I was on fire.
Man, I bet that was just a nightmare experience.
It was something in a way that I learned a lot from. I do a lot of instructing, and in this particular case, I was at an HPDE. I wasn't in competition, and I had a passenger in the car, and she had never been on a racetrack.
Oh no.
Or in a race car, and she just wanted to ride in this Evo all day long, and she finally got the courage to come out there, and we went out there and did 3 laps and caught on fire. And so I just looked over at her as we were smoking coming up through 10B. I was trying to get over off the racing line out into the grass, and I just looked over and I said, "We're on fire, but we're okay. We have a fire extinguisher in here with us. When this car comes to a stop, do not jump out of it and run. You will get hit by a race car."
Yeah.
And so we got up actually just right inside of the pit wall, and I was like, now get out, now get out. So I was forced to remain calm because I was in an education situation,
right.
but it wasn't very fun. We all laughed about it later, but it wasn't.
You had to stay in instructor mode.
Yeah, that's right.
Man.
So yeah, you know, but we were talking about these strengths and weaknesses, and the weakness is this connection of the turbo to the manifold. There's a lot of heat produced down there too, so that's a little bit of something to work through. We're working through that we can't run a flat bottom or anything, so you get a lot of turbulence in there, and so we're trying to correct that with some hood louvers that we installed last year. And I had a custom heat shield fabricated for the car, a couple other custom parts for the car to address the heat down there. And we're moving over to a custom manifold with a V-band mount.
Good. No more bolts going loose.
That's right. Yep. I need better reliability and better serviceability out of the turbo and manifold. Yep. And there's no room for your hands in there. And when you're coming off a racetrack and there's heat involved, it's nearly impossible for service. And so I've got to change that. And I think when that occurs, I'll have an extremely, extremely reliable setup.
Heck yeah. That's awesome. So Brad, let's say I have an Evo 10 and I want to get into grid life or time attack style racing. What should be my first modifications?
Your first modifications is to invest in yourself as a driver before you invest in your car.
Okay.
The absolute first thing that you need to do before you want to get out there and go racing is to get out there and go get some seat time. Your car doesn't have to have a bigger turbo to go racing. Mm-hmm. Your car doesn't have to be full bolt on before it can be on a racetrack. The more stock, the better. And the reason for that is because if you take a stock chassis out on a racetrack and you start putting it through its paces, it will expose, based on your driving style, what it is that you need to start working with.
Oh, wow.
And that's a great thing. When I have a car, a new chassis, I'm going, straight, if you will, from the dealer to the track, because I want the thing to have a whole bunch of body roll and sloppiness, because I want to know where to start improving. Mm-hmm. What I found with the Evo, I bought it a little bit modified already, but those would have been the first steps, is the suspension tuning. Power should come last. It really should. Learn to use the power you have before you go add more. Okay. Power will also give you a false impression that you're doing better because it will mask mistakes. If I go through turns horribly, but have a rocket ship down the back straight and run a decent lap time, I think I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But really, I'm leaving a lot on the table. So first and foremost, driver education and seat time. And if you can do it, a sim. A sim has to be one of the best investments if you want to get serious about racing.
Yeah. There's
several reasons for this. One is you're going to be going to new tracks you've never been to. I'd never been to Circuit of the Americas before. This is a way to practice it for free. No tires, no oil changes, no crashes. And you go out there and you learn a track and you get muscle memory. And the sims are so good these days, and the equipment can be so good, that it really truly translates from the sim to the racetrack.
Okay.
100%. We've got a local pub down here. The guy's a race car driver. He's got 4 really nice sim setups in there. And so we started a sim racing league.
Oh, nice.
So on Monday nights, 10 or 15 guys get in there. and do some racing. And I got to tell you, man, people are fast. People are real fast. People have never been to a track on a car, in a car, are fast.
Yeah.
And so again, investing in yourself, a simulator if you can, and the cost of entry, that's really low. It's probably about the same as a weekend at the track. So if you think about investing the same amount of money in something you can repeat hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, or something you can do once,
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. All the seat time you can get, autocross, HPDE. To this day, if I go to HPDE, typically because I'm instructing, I go find another instructor I admire and I put them in the car with me. Why would I ever pass up the opportunity to be surrounded by professional race car drivers and not put one in my car and teach me something? So, everyone's hot to trot to get out of that HPDE green group and into the blue group so they can be solo and they can drive themselves. And that's important, and that's a great landmark. But you should always be taking some time to put someone in your car.
Yeah.
There's just too much knowledge out there. I did this at Sebring and learned a whole new way to go through turn 9 that just opened my eyes to something completely different that I employ all the time today. So, you can learn a lot. So seat time, driver mod, all of the instructors, and then you're actually driving the car well, and you'll be able to tell what the car needs. And power is probably last.
So would you say that would be the same advice, Brad, if I had whatever car and was just looking to get into time attack racing? Like I know some people on here before have said, like, maybe hit up your local autocross and get started there. Would that be your advice, or you think start with a sim and then kind of go from there?
Autocross is a fantastic tool. Autocross is fun. The cost of entry is cheap. You can do it in your mom's Corolla if you want to, and you can get out there and be in a low enough speed environment that you're not going to harm anything typically, and learn some vehicle dynamics. Because autocrosses tend to be much tighter, obviously, the first thing you learn is that you're probably over driving the car, plowing through, corners because you couldn't transition the car. You learn a lot of physics about the car, about weight transfer using the steering wheel, weight transfer using the throttle, weight transfer using the brakes. Because you're in these tight corners, you've really got to change direction of that car a lot. And so all of these driver dynamics and all of these, dozens and dozens of inputs per second that you're calculating in your brain, it's a really safe, friendly environment to learn that. And if you mess up, you run over a cone.
It's been said on here a couple times that autocrossers make great road course guys. So I feel like, is that something that you would agree with?
Yeah, absolutely. And, age dependent, if you're too young to autocross, get in a kart.
Yeah.
That's not something that was available to me, at a young age. I was racing motorcycles, and so many people now, so many of these young people that I meet and teach, they come from karting, and boy, did they learn a lot.
Good.
When you're young like that, you're a sponge also. And so I recommend getting into it as soon as you can. And I'm going to say it again, a sim is a good way to do it. My 10-year-old girls will get on it. So, you can start teaching and learning and having fun at the same time at a very early age now.
Sounds like you got to be the right kind of person for this. You got to be the one that could take criticism, which I feel like a lot of people struggle with nowadays.
Yeah, taking criticism, you've got to, you shouldn't step foot on a track if you can. A lot of us use the Garmin Catalyst, absolutely fantastic driver aid, and it records video and all of your lap data all of your car inputs. It does so many things, and a bunch of us have them. And we will literally come back from a session and sit down in a circle and go through each other's laps and
Wow.
see exactly who was faster, where, and what corner, and all learn from each other. So, this level of racing, fortunately, your competitors and I mean, we're out there competing. Let's not make let's not get confused. We're out there competing, but everybody helps each other.
Right.
And so you need to be willing to learn, and you need to be willing to teach. You've got to exit the mentality that if I teach my competitor, he could be faster.
Mm-hmm.
That could be true, but that pushes you to be faster.
Right. It's only going to incentivize you to get it back ahead of them and to look what you're doing.
That's right. So yeah, using tools and aids and communicating with your peers and your competitors is how you keep getting faster.
Awesome. So Brad, what are your goals for 2024?
My goals for 2024, they did evolve a little bit over the last couple of months. I'm pending an arm surgery from a torn bicep, which will be my third, and it's going to take me out of driving for a little bit. And so while I had planned on getting full on with the enthusiast class this year and really trying to keep that car on the podium, I'm probably not going to be able to achieve all of those races this year. So it's going to be a little bit of a reconstruction year for me. I'm also switching things up a little bit. I went drifting for the first time a couple of months ago. I always try to find something to do that's different and that's exciting and that will increase my driver skill. And one thing that I found a weakness, a hole in my driving, is that when driving on the edge and things don't go perfect, I tend to be very conservative about backing up off of that and, ensuring I regain control of the car and things like that. And that's a good approach, but I can be a little bit faster if I can be a little bit better at that. So I decided to go drifting and teach myself, a different type of vehicle dynamics. And as the guy who taught me said, man, you time attack guys are just afraid to let go of the wheel. And if you go drifting and you try to shuffle the wheel in your hand, you can never be fast enough. So you're going to learn today. And so we took this LS S14 that I have, and we made some chassis adjustments to it because it's set up a road course. So we just made some alignment changes and took it drifting, and I loved it. And I'm not going to go out there and try to be a pro drifter, but I'm going to utilize it as a driver tool. So I'm going to get a little bit more into drifting this year.
Cool.
And I'm not going to do that in a very expensive road course car that I built. So I'm actually selling that, and I'm going to grab myself a cheap Mustang and learn to drift. And I'm also going to grab myself a Miata and start working in the TT class of NASA and put together a roadmap for wheel racing.
Wow, that's really exciting. It seems like as much as I love watching time attack racing, like I do wish there was a wheel-to-wheel component. So I could see definitely why you're heading in that direction.
Yep. And with the forced time off for some upcoming stuff, I'm gonna put those things I just mentioned together, and I'm gonna get out there in the Evo and do as much as I can, and hopefully, if everything plays out like it should, next year I'm gonna be back on track with that global time attack for the enthusiast class. I really love that organization and love the people in that organization, and it's super fun and super competitive, and I know it's made me a better driver, and this Evo is just too fun. So I'm gonna try a hobby path for a road to wheel racing, but I'm not going to stop beating on this Evo and global time attack.
Heck yeah. So, Brad, do you have a long-term goal for this car? Like, you want a points champion at the end of the season next year?
Everyone does. So everyone has that goal, and that's the fun part. And, long-term goals, as it goes in the enthusiast class, if you win, if you're the champion of the enthusiast class, you're forced into street class the following season, whether you want to or not. And so I guess the long-term goal is to accomplish that. That was also some of the longer-term planning for the extensive build. The extensive build is not really necessary at my current class, but it absolutely will be in the next. And so, buy once, cry once, people say. So I put the car together to be able to expand into other classes should I be lucky enough to have the skill level to do so.
Cool. Well, it sounds like there really won't be any events in 2024 that we can see you at in action with this Evo, right?
I am going, it is doubtful that I will be at Circuit of the Americas coming up here soon, but I will most definitely be at Road Atlanta and probably also Carolina Motorsports Park. So we will see that the Evo will make some televised laps this year.
I'm going to try to make it down to Road Atlanta, so I definitely want to see this thing in action.
That would be awesome. P1 at Road Atlanta, truthfully, is one of my short-term goals. I stood third on the podium there last year, and it's just such an iconic track to me, and so fun and so challenging, and just the right amount of scary. And I would really love to be able to stand on the podium there and won.
Heck yeah! Well, I look forward to that.
So I hope you're there, and I hope I'm there.
I'll definitely.
And we're gonna push it. We're gonna push hard.
Yeah. So, Brad, where can people find and follow you on social media and see some more of this Evo in action?
I'm Brad Balcom on Facebook, and I am Brad_CHS on IG.
Okay.
And I promise to do a better job of putting cars on social media.
It's not easy, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not. I have my hands in lots of things. Jonathan Wheeler, actually the enthusiast class champion, running his top speed 370Z, is a great friend and business partner of mine, and lives down the road. And we do a lot of things together, both in business and in hobby. So we've been staying pretty busy.
Good deal. I feel like there was a point in time where I would see a company hiring for a social media manager, and I thought, that's so stupid. Why would they hire somebody to post on Facebook? Now I get it. I get it now.
Yep, exactly.
All right, Brad. Well, at the end, I always give people a chance to give a thanks or a shout-out to anybody who's helped them get where they are, get their car where it is. Is there anybody that you want to give a shout-out to?
Oh, yeah, that would be great. I'd love to. Definitely a couple people I should say thank you to. First off, my girlfriend, Kristen Holman, is just one of my biggest supporters. She's been in the car a whole bunch of times. She's annoyingly fearless. I caught her checking her email after ripping through 12 in Road Atlanta in the Evo. We're on the back straight. And I was looked over to tell her we did really good this time. And she was on her phone. Yeah. And, but she's great. She's slept in my truck at a bunch of events. She's driven across the country a bunch of times. She keeps me calm, and she reminds me that I do this for fun. I mentioned John Wheeler, friend, business partner, competitor, amazing driver, helps me out, coaches me a lot. And, we do a lot of wrenching too. So, shout out, first of all, for winning the championship. It was a clean sweep. He set a bunch of rear wheel drive records. Amazing guy.
Heck yeah.
Jason Hemphy at DSG Performance, he's responsible for the build. Me coming into the platform as a newbie, he just filled me in on, I feel like, a decade of knowledge in a single day. He put the entire package together after extensive conversations about what my goals were, what the car was being used for, and we kept up, and he was really stoked to see an Evo 10 on track. And so Jason at DSG and the guys over at Exigent just knocked it out of the park. Radium Engineering picked them up as a sponsor last year. They've helped me tremendously. I have an amazing fuel setup on the car, amazing quality of parts. When you call their tech people, you speak to one of their engineers. Radium Engineering, fantastic company. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Chag, I've got to give a shout out to Chag Tuned. That guy tuned my car day and night for 20 hours straight, and kept me going at Circuit of the Americas with a brand new car and brand new setup. Awesome guy, top notch, really well known out there in the tuning community. Shout out to Round Fab, Ashby Mahan. Round Fab is a fab shop right here local to Charleston. And that guy has done some last minute artwork to the car, and his fabrication's nothing short of artwork. Does beautiful things. Heck yeah. And has really helped me address some weak points in a great way with the Evo. Lastly, the owners and organizers, Jason Deardart of Global Time Attack, Adam Jabay of Grid Life. Those guys put on world-class events. It's the best motorsports lifestyle events in the world. Adam's festivals are amazing, absolutely amazing. And the organization that Jason and his crew does with Global Time Attack is top notch. You feel like you're at a Formula One event when you go to a Global Time Attack event. You know, to go to COTA as a gentleman driver, and the entire grandstands are full of people. And you know, you're coming through turns with people cheering, and the passageways are all full of people. You know, a guy like me just out there having fun with his friends, like doing some Time Attack events, to be cheered on by 10,000 people at Circuit of the Americas is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is.
So shout out to those organizations for just doing such a fine job of putting together classes that keep us competitive, helping out all the drivers. The coordination that goes into it is extensive and it's flawless. So kudos to those guys.
Heck yeah. Well, Brad, thank you so much for coming on here and taking the time to tell your story and the story of this amazing Evo 10. I can't wait to catch you in action this year, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
Yep. Awesome, man. It was great to meet you over the phone, and I hope to see you out on the track as soon as possible.
Yes, sir. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Josh. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.